So when a person is at a low level, it's very negative. No matter how positive you are, you can't make them be positive. You could by using these levels as areas of discussion. For example, if the person is at invalidation, they're going to refute anything you say. I really love you. Oh, no, you don't. That's refutation, and it's invalidation.
We're on to the scale of evaluation.
Yes. Okay.
Do you want to introduce yourself and take it away?
I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book, Septemics Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Today, we're going to talk about one of the scales in that book. This is the scale of evaluation. This is an extremely volatile scale, meaning a person's position on this changes pretty quickly and easily. At the opposite extreme, you have something like the scale of basic purposes, where most people spend an entire lifetime at one level of that scale. When I say most, more than 90%. On this scale, it changes by the minute or by the hour. You can actually talk to somebody and watch them go up and down this scale. If you are, for example, a salesman trying to sell a product or service to someone, when the client walks in, they're in level 4, neutrality. Everyone enters the scale at neutrality. And it's your job, relative to whatever you're selling, to move him up the scale. First, to accept it, then to be unanimous about it, and then to be encouraging. If it's going the other way, you're not doing well. If you're trying to develop a rapport with the girls, right? So you go out on a date. It starts at neutrality, and as the evening goes on, you're trying to work up the scale to where there's acceptance, there's unanimity, and there's encouragement.
Jim, can you explain, because other scales are quantum, this one is linear
Yes.
and gradual and specific. I detect there is no inflow or outflow on this scale. Can you give an overview of that?
Sure. This scale has no inflow outflow in it. Remember, I've made the point many times, each of the 35 scales is unique, which is good because that enables it to cover all of human phenomena. So it's a linear scale, meaning there's no apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7. It's gradual, meaning you move gradually from level to level. There is an infinitude of gradations between every level. So you're moving up gradually. And it's specific, meaning it has no general meaning. It only makes sense in a context. So you're evaluating somebody as regards buying this product or as regards their religion or their political group.
Somebody enters neutrality at level 4. If we take the scenario of a married couple going through an acrimonious divorce, that's led to condemnation between the spouses, where there's a disowning or a vendetta. The individuals have reached that level of condemnation on the scale. What are the consequences of such extreme negative evaluations? How can the scale help us in understanding and potentially resolving those deeply entrenched conflicts?
Okay, as regards resolving, when you spot the correct level, that tells you what the next level up is, and that tells you what you should be going for. So if you're at condemnation and you improve the relationship a little, you will then have invalidation. You drink too much, you're a bum, you don't pay attention to me, right? That's invalidation. The person is refuting you. The next level up would be discouragement. But the person disagrees with you. So maybe they stop invalidating you, but they're still saying, I don't want you around. See, that's discouraging. So as with any other scale, when you know the correct level and target the next level up, you can get there if an attempt is made. When you're talking about two people, a spouse, if the spouse doesn't want to agree, then there's no way to do anything about it. There has to be something to work with. If the person just says, go to hell, I don't want to hear it, there's really nothing you can do about that. But it does tell you where you are and what to expect. You can predict what's going to happen by knowing the correct level.
So if they moved up to conflict resolution, but they're at different levels on the scale of evaluation, what are the challenges and benefits of trying to move someone up the scale during a disagreement?
Okay, first of all, if you have one party who's at a higher level, that party has some ability to help the person at the lower level come up because they're not firing back the same way. You see this all the time. The wife is mad, and the husband comes home with a dozen roses and a box of candy and says, please don't be mad at me. So he's at maybe acceptance. Now, she's the one in this scenario who's down at something below 4. If you have allowed it to deteriorate down to condemnation, lots of luck. You probably can't do anything with that. When a person is at or near the bottom of any scale, it's because he lacks insight in that area. And you cannot bring insight into another person's mind if it's not there. They have to get it themselves. By the time it gets down to condemnation and loathing, that's hatred, and there's not a lot you can do about that other than just get away from it. Because you have to realize, even if there's an improvement, it's going to improve up to invalidation and refutation. So when a person is at a low level, it's very negative. No matter how positive you are, you can't make them be positive. You could by using these levels as areas of discussion. For example, if the person is at invalidation, they're going to refute anything you say. I really love you. Oh, no, you don't. That's refutation, and it's invalidation. So you could say to them, have I done something to discourage you? Yes, tell me about it. See, then you can get all the disagreements. And that might get the person up to discouragement because you're getting them into the next level. But as I have said with all of them, by the time the person is at or near the bottom, there's not a lot you can do. So the smart way to use these scales is to be vigilant and not let it get to that point. Someone is discouraging you, they're already below neutrality, and you need to do something about that.
I'm looking now at level 5, discouragement. The scenario in my mind is there's a parent, their child is feeling down, they're trying to uplift them, they're trying to encourage them, but that child is feeling discouraged. How would a parent use the scale of evaluation to support that child emotionally when they're feeling discouraged? Are there any practical strategies to help the children move up the scale?
The first thing you need to do is get the context. What is this person discouraged about? You didn't even know that yet. So you could try to find the context. What seems to be the problem? How are you doing at school? You could have somebody who has serious emotional problems who gets straight A's. They're not discouraged about school. They're discouraged about people. None of my friends like me. People don't like me. I can see how that would be discouraging to you. What kind of disagreements have there been in this area? Have you had disagreements with your friends? So you're taking the level and parsing it, but you have to get it in the context first before you can do anything with it. Something I do with my clients, I say, what's the problem? You'd be amazed how much difficulty people have in telling you the problem. Many people don't know what the problem is. And when you get the person to define the problem, that usually is a point of realization. Now that you mention it, I can see that the problem is that I like Joe, but he doesn't like me. So you've defined it now. There's a little insight there. So the person is a little better able to deal with this situation.
The context gives you the content, which gives you the containment of that situation to enable them to move up the scale.
Yes. So let's say we're continuing this scenario where the parent has the child. So the parent determines that the discouragement is about having friends, right? So then you can say, I'm sorry you're discouraged. When did you start feeling discouraged about this? So you're getting them to look at it, take it apart. What disagreements did you have with this person and that person? You're getting the person to start to unravel it a little bit. So as the person talks to you, they're having little insights. And after a while, they might say to you, I don't really care. That's neutrality. That's the meaning of neutrality. See? So you've gotten them up a level. A lot of what's good about this book is you're finding out where the person is. And when the person gets up to the next level, you know you've made progress because he's at that next level. Don't just keep going with it. Where the person has felt better, felt improved, is not feeling discouraged anymore. Quit while you're ahead. So then, if the person says, I don't care about this anymore, say, okay, how would you like to come down and we'll have a Coke together? You have to know when to shut up. And when the person gets to the next level, you have to let them have that victory. With all of these, you have a spectrum. And by having the spectrum, you can analyze a situation by saying which of the 7 rays is being emitted here. When you see that color at that level, that tells you what the deal is, and you can focus on that.
So these could be red, orange, green, yellow, blue, indigo, violet. Okay, I get that.
That's the basic idea. For these 35 different axes that I have identified, there is a spectrum, and it's very specific. And when you know what the spectrum is, you know what to expect. For example, if the person is not at acceptance, you're not going to get them to unanimity. You have to first get them to acceptance. Then once they're at acceptance, then it begins opening the way to moving them up to unanimity. This is a gradual scale. See, in a quantum situation, one jumps instantaneously from one level to the next. In this scale, that's not the case. So this is very intuitive. So the person accepts you a little, accepts you more, accepts you some more, and then condones you. You can see we're getting up to unanimity. When you have agreement, which is what unanimity is, then there's a closeness there. So let's look at the axis, because the axis talks about closeness. The dotted vertical line on the right tells you what you're measuring in this scale. When I discovered these scales, I had to question 7 levels of what are we measuring with these 7 levels? Are these inches? Are these centimeters? This is what we're measuring. We're going from love at the top to hate at the bottom. So when you're looking at love, which is an emotional state, you're looking at encouragement, which is avidity. When there's hatred, there's condemnation or loathing. If you just look at it in terms of this scale, it makes it clinical. In other words, you don't have to get drawn into the love and the hate. It's what you're measuring. The beauty of all of these scales is it gets you to look at it the way a scientist would look at something.
You can measure and interpret it quite seamlessly. Many people can measure something, but they may not be able to give it interpretation. It might be fuzzy on the interpretation.
Yeah, this book dispels fuzziness. The first thing you do is you find the right scale, and that's usually not hard to do because in most human situations, more than one scale applies. Then you have to find the right level. So let's say you're feeling very negative about your girlfriend. You look at the scale. So where am I here? What has my behavior been? Do I really loathe her? Nah, I don't loathe her. Yeah, I have been invalidating her in my mind. Okay, so now you know where you are. So the next step up is discouragement, which is not as bad as invalidation. Let me talk about using this overall so that you see how this works, right? Let's say you have somebody from some foreign country who's never been to a soccer match, never seen a soccer match, doesn't know anything, right? So you say, okay, look, we're all going to the football game. Why don't you come with us? I guess you would say match, right? Football match. So the person says, I don't know anything about this. I have the ticket. Just come along and we'll have fun together. So when that person walks into the stadium, he's at neutrality. He's impartial. He doesn't know anything about it, so he neither likes it nor dislikes it. He's impartial. As the match is being played, he's going to either move up or down the scale. You turn to him, let's say 20 minutes later, and you say, what do you think about this? And he might say, yeah, I can see why a lot of people would like this. See, he's up to 3. He's condoning this. Or he might say, why would anybody want to watch this? Bunch of guys with shorts running around kicking a ball. What's good about this? He's gone down to discouragement. He disagrees with it. If you say, okay, let's finish watching the match, right? So as it goes on, he might go down where he's really saying, I don't like this. This is not something that appeals to me. Don't tell me you want to watch a soccer match because I'm not going to watch. He's down on validation. Whereas if you said, okay, if you're not having fun, let's go. He might have just left at level 5 instead of going down to level 6. So let's look at it the other way, right? Let's say he says, yeah, I can see why people would like this. Great, let's watch it some more. So at the end, you say, what did you think? And he says, I understand why you watch this. See, he's agreeing with you. This is cool. I could go to another soccer match. See, there's some agreement there. So he's gone up to level 2. So he comes over to your house and you have the soccer match on and he watches it. He says, this is really fun. And he tells his friends, oh yeah, I'm becoming an enthusiast of football, English football. He's avid about it. He loves it. Somebody says to him, how do you like soccer? He says, I love soccer. He's gone up. That's how this works. It doesn't take a long period of time, and it's easy to move somebody by knowing where they're at. So let's say you're running for office and you're talking to a voter, right? You have to get him to accept you. You present yourself nicely. You have a suit and a tie, hair is combed, you're well shaven. So you want him to accept you, right? He walks in the room and he sees you look like a smiling, rational person, okay? So he says, okay, I can accept this guy. There's already a little progress. Then you talk to him and you try to get him to agree with you. Wouldn't you rather pay lower taxes? I said, sure, he's agreeing with you. In order to do that, we need to cut wasteful spending. He says, that makes sense to me. He says, I want to go to the government and focus on zeroing out all these non-essential programs, redundant programs, catching fraud, waste, and abuse, and then lowering the taxes. The guy says, sounds great to me. You have brought him up to level 2. That might be enough to get him to vote for you. If you're an American, you go to Washington, he sees you speaking this way in the House and putting forth the bill to cut spending. And he says, hey, this guy's doing what he said he's going to do. See, now he goes to his neighbor and he says, I saw Smith on TV. It's great. I'm going to vote for him again. See, he's up at 1. He's avid. Somebody says, what do you think about your representative? Oh, I love him. That's the top of the scale.
When I was looking at neutrality, I was thinking about being impersonal, and I drew a triangle. I had positive, negative, and neutral being at the apex of the triangle. I thought, if I'm impartial, if I'm standing at the apex of the triangle, I'm able to see both sides of things, both sides of the argument. Then I can make the choice or have an opinion or an insight, but I'm being impersonal first before I become highly personal. Like you described the chap who went to the soccer match. He's at the apex. Does he like it? Does he not like it? Would that be right?
I think you're conflating impartiality and impersonal when you're not emotionally involved. Your analysis is right that when you are neutral, you can look at both sides and make a judgment. That is why you want a judge to be at level 4 or a referee. You want him to be neutral, impartial. Now, whether it's personal or not is another thing. In other words, that's getting into the emotion of it. And I guess you could say that's where the love and the hate comes in on the right. As I point out in the book, neutrality might be the best way to approach things. Because when you're neutral, you have no dog in that race. You're impartial. And that is how everyone enters the scale.
So the United Nations as a force would be neutral.
I think what can be seen in the United Nations, in the first place, no one is neutral. And secondly, no one is impartial, but you get some sort of a big melange that comes out of this. Can we all agree that this country should not have attacked this other country? And you may be able to get enough of an agreement on that to get something voted through. Impartiality sits with an individual. This is an individual scale. But there's something to be said for being neutral, because if somebody takes away your favorite toy, it's going to bother you. But if you're not emotionally attached to it, it's not going to bother you. Often people ask me about belief. They'll say to me, there's a scale of belief, but it holds true here too. Do you believe this or do you believe that? My general answer, 99% of the time, is I neither believe nor disbelieve, meaning I'm neutral. I don't have a lot of beliefs. I have a lot of knowledge. That's a different thing. You can sit in neutrality with a lot of knowledge. And that's what we expect the judge to be. That's what a good judge is. When the judge hates one side or the other, he has no business being there. He should recuse himself or be removed from the case. I learned in litigation, because I've had a lot of experience in law, the smart thing is to not get the judge mad at you. If you have a case, typically, you go to court and some of the cases are adjudicated in front of you while you're waiting before they call your name, right? So you get to watch this judge and you can see it happen. You can see some boneheaded litigant irritating the judge. So you know where this is going to end up. The judge is no longer impartial. This guy has poked the bear. It's not a surprise when you see the judge finds against the person. If the judge is already at a lower level before you go into the courtroom, you're in big trouble. You have to try to get him back up to being neutral.
If you had a group of friends discussing various social issues like environmental movements or socialism or feminism, politics, with different levels of agreement, how can understanding and applying the scale of evaluation to your own attitudes and those of your friends improve social dynamics and conversations, particularly when they're diverse opinions on subjects like environmental movements or feminism or politics or socialism?
In the first place, I would say if you see that you and another person have divergent opinions, that means that person is lower level relative to you. That person is going to discourage.
Right.
So that's a good reason not to say anything. And my father taught me as a child never discuss politics or religion. People even ask me point blank, I say, sorry, I don't discuss politics or religion because they're divisive and I don't want to be divided from you. So another way to look at this is to look at the positive side. Let's say you have a friend who is a football fan and you both root for the same team, right? You go to soccer matches, watch it on TV together. Then you find out that this guy's Labour and you're Tory. I would not broach that. I would just let sleeping dogs lie. You're going to lose a soccer buddy if you do that. So that's a good time to spot it and indemnify yourself against this conflict.
I think that's very wise. In terms of therapy or a therapeutic application, as an example, if I'm working with a client who has a negative attitude about a specific aspect of their life, could you elaborate on the therapeutic use of the scale of evaluation? How can a therapist help a client move up the scale, especially when the client's attitude is at a lower level, like condemnation or discouragement?
The first thing is you have to understand the context. When a person is clinically depressed, it's generalized. The world is black. You have to get the context if you're going to use this.
Mm.
What is the situation? What is the problem? What's really going on here? When you find out what's really happening with the person, you can spot the person on this level. You have to figure out what is this guy's attitude toward, let's say he's having work problems. Is he in a state of invalidation toward his job and his boss? See, if he is, that's definitely not as bad as condemnation and loathing. And you might say a lot of invalidation mixed up in this. Oh, yeah. When people have bad ideas about people, they're invalidating them, they're refuting them. You can spot that and say, did this discourage you? Sure, it discouraged me. Tell me about this. See, and then you can say, did you have a lot of disagreements with your boss? Yes. He doesn't want me to take lunch at 12. He wants me to take it at 1. As he's telling you all this, you're moving him from invalidation and refutation up to discouragement and disagreement. You might say, yeah, I'm pretty discouraged about this. You've already made progress. Then you can say, okay, anything more you want to tell me about being discouraged about this? When did this discouragement start? What opinions do you have about this? What ideas do you have? You could get him to tell you about the discouragement and the disagreement, the instances, the specifics, because you know what you're focusing on. At some point, he might say, oh, to hell with it. I don't want to waste my time on this anymore.
Would that be the same in terms of establishing what the context is in terms of interpersonal relationships? Because if you have a close friendship and it's strained due to disagreement, how does the scale of evaluation affect the dynamics? How might an individual move up and down the scale, impacting the relationship's quality?
The first thing is you can contain it by knowing the context. For example, I have a sister whose political views are completely inimical to mine. There's no overlap at all. That did not stop us from having a close fraternal relationship. I don't discuss it. I discuss something else. So I steer away from that and steer into how are your kids? How are you feeling? We talk about something else. So you can contain it by saying, okay, this context is problematic, but we have all these other things. We're working together on a political campaign. This would be a big problem, but we're not. She's my sister. Have you seen cousin Joe? How is he? Oh, yeah, I talked to him. He's fine. You steer away from that context and into the positive context. It enables you to benefit from this relationship. This is a corollary to a theory that I've had my whole life, which is to find the best in the organism. Yes, roses have thorns, which could cause you serious damage. They can shred your skin if you're not careful, but they have a wonderful scent and they're beautiful. So you just stay away from the thorns, be careful, wear gloves when you go near them, pick them carefully, and then you get to enjoy the sight and the scent because you don't let the thorns make you hate roses. You don't have that problem with tulips. You don't have to worry about thorns. It's the same thing with creatures. If I had a rabbit, I wouldn't ask him to swim. Rabbits are not good swimmers, but boy, can they run. I wouldn't ask it to fly. They can't fly. But if I had a bird, a pet bird, oh, the bird can fly. He can't walk very well. I look at people the same way. So this is how I look at everybody in the world. Okay, because the truth is, there are very few, if any, people who don't have some positive qualities. For example, if I tell you a particular person, he's an art lover, he loves his mother, he's an animal lover, he's a vegetarian, he's patriotic. So that sounds like a great guy. You know who I just described? Adolf Hitler. All of that was accurate about Adolf Hitler. That doesn't mean he wasn't an evil, destructive person. But you got to remember, to Ava Brown, he was the greatest guy in the world. So she must have been seeing something in him. So she was seeing those things that I enumerated. Different people have different values. So you have to select for that. And that's how you cultivate relationships. If this person is a rabbit, let him run. Very close to the whole idea of Septemics, which is analytical. You analyze the person. See, where is this person? What is this person about? Because in a sense, if you use this scale that you have, for example, political differences with a person, at a minimum, if I were to try to have a political discussion with this particular sister, we would be at level 6. Invalidation and refutation. I don't want to get into that. See, so knowing this, it's a red light. I stay away from that. And I still have a good relationship with my sister. You can't use this in a generalized sense.
Right.
You have to use it for each individual person.
If there was a political campaign in full swing and different individuals have varying positions on the candidate, as an example, how would the scale of evaluation come into play in the context of a political campaign where the supporters and opponents might have different levels of agreement and disagreement with the candidate's policies?
Of course they do. That's the norm rather than the exception. You look at the Republican Party in the United States, you have faction. The Republican Party is still very democratic. There's nobody coming in with a club saying, you're going to do what I tell you or else. It's, well, I'm sorry you disagree with me. There was a big furor in the United States recently about the House of Representatives getting rid of their leader and then electing another leader. And a lot of people said it's chaotic. That's how democracy is. If you don't want that, then you have to have Hitler, Mussolini, or Pol Pot. Then you don't have disagreement. Because if you disagree, you're dead. Or they torture you to the point where your personality changes, as was done with Machiavelli. They literally tortured him. He was involved in Italian politics. Put him in prison, they tortured him. When he came out, he was a little bit different. If you read his world famous book, The Prince, you can see that's in there where he's cowering. That's one of the reasons that I find that book somewhat repulsive, although I accept the insight and the wisdom in it, but it's still repulsive to me. When I see people raise the arm and go, Sieg Heil Hitler, to me, that's demented, Heil Hitler. Maybe Heil Deutschland, okay, that's not so bad. But the Heil part of it rubs me the wrong way anyway.
Brainwashing is easy, but reasoning isn't.
Yes. Also, you just have fear, intimidation. And I can give you specific examples like Werner von Braun. He was not a stupid person, and he was not an evil person, but he was an SS officer, because that is how he got the government to put $1 million behind his rocketry. Same with Albert Speer. Albert Speer was not a bad person. In fact, he apologized. He showed remorse, which is why after the Nuremberg trial, they didn't execute him. He's one of the few they didn't execute. They sent him to prison for 20 years because he showed remorse. He said, yes, I regret having done this. So that saved his life. And he wrote a book. He's not a crazy person. He's not an evil person, but he got to be the top architect in Germany by being an SS officer. People do things like that. Somebody once asked Bill Clinton about a fellow Democrat who had been in the Ku Klux Klan, a high-ranking member of the Ku Klux Klan. That fellow is now dead. They asked Clinton about it, and he said, what I see is the young guy trying to make his way in local politics. This guy was from West Virginia, where the Klan was big. If he wanted to get elected dog catcher, being in the Klan helped him. So a lot of people do things like that.
You see what you teach yourself to see.
Sure. So people rationalize all kinds of things. And there's a whole scale of justification. I take the subject of justification and analyze it in 7 different contexts, 7 different ways that you can justify something. Justification goes on all the time. Everybody does it. But there's a low-level justification, a high-level justification. You can analyze that on a person. How is this person justifying it?
I see a lot of people rationalize themselves into immobility through justification. It shows me that as human beings, we are prone to not only self-deception, but the theater of communal deception.
Yes, that goes into the scale of choice. Remember the scale of choice?
Yes.
Okay, so you have to go all the way up to level 3 to get somebody who has his own choice. 4, 5, 6, and 7, it's not his own choice. It's somebody else's making the choice, if there's any made at all. So that's a pretty high level for somebody who says, no, I know what you guys are doing. I'm going to do this. He makes his own choice. It's a high level. You can just look at a person and see where he is on this scale. Watch him. People tell you their levels. If you just shut up and listen, the person will tell you what his level is. And then you pick him up at that level, and then you try to get him up one higher level. So if the person is at acceptance, like he says, yeah, John McCain is okay. You probably know him as a senator now deceased. He's okay. He's accepting it, right? This guy's trying to make you give money to his campaign. He needs to get you to agree to where you develop some unanimity. Here's why he did this. Here's why this is a good idea. And then you move up to unanimity. Okay, I'll contribute some money. See, you're not merely accepting him now. There's a unanimity there. Okay, I agree with this guy. With all the skills, you have to correctly spot the level, and then you move the person up to the next level. If you try to move the person to a level other than the next one up, you will fail because it's too steep a gradient. It's not the next level.
I used the scale of permeation last week with a client. This is why not only learning these scales, but aligning yourself to these scales and ensuring it's part of your basic constitution so you can point your faculty towards actively listening. Like you're saying, people will tell you what scale they're on, but you need to be attuned so you can listen and understand where they are on that scale. Then you can move forward with them. But if you're not attuned to it, then you tune them out. You have no idea. If you just learn it and use it as data storage, that's one level. But to align yourself to it, so it becomes part of your basic constitution, then you can amplify and reflect what is happening right in front of you. That's my experience so far on this journey with you.
What I tell all the readers who ask me, the way to approach this is a textbook on a new subject. You should read it the way you would read a chemistry text, a physics text, an economics text, mathematics text. You start on line 1 of page 1. Make sure you understand it, and then go to line 2. When you get to the end of the book, you go back to the beginning, and as you come to each scale, find your level on that scale. By the time you get to the end, you have found your level on 35 scales. That in itself will be a major change in your personality because you have clarity, who you are, what you're doing, what you're about. Then, because you know the correct one, you target yourself for the next level up. So every time you're moving up, you're becoming more capable, more insightful, more able, and you just move yourself up. If you try to make yourself go from a lower level to the next upper level above it, you'll probably get there if you make a serious step. The main issue is that people don't attempt it. People just read a book. It's a very good book.
People want instant gratification. They don't take the time or the patience to cultivate the soil so the seeds planted can take root and bloom. They've got to be able to tend to that soil so that when those green shoots come up, they can see progress, but it takes time. We're so locked into this machinery of distraction that people want everything so quick because everything's become so digitalized. We push a button, it happens. You can destroy somebody by the push of a button.
There's no question in my mind. I've been watching this carefully. You have to understand, I've been using computers since I was an engineering student. In prep school, Even then, I was using computers. So I've watched this whole thing unravel in front of me. I am absolutely certain that the general intelligence of the population is being reduced by the dependent upon digital devices. To a meeting a few years ago, and I'm sitting in this big room with all these people, and there was a young lady next to me. Maybe I'm being too generous with the term lady, a young woman, and she had her cell phone out. When I walked in and sat next to her, because that was the chair that was open, she was right there. I couldn't avoid seeing. She had this cell phone in front of her face. And when I left an hour later, that cell phone was still in front of her face. Why go to a meeting? There was like hundreds of people there. If you're just going to stare at a screen, this young person grew up with this and has become an appendage to that phone. I see that all the time in people. They serve the machine. There's the famous science fiction story, the name of which eludes me at the moment, but in the far future, when people would greet one another, instead of saying hello, they'd say, I serve the machine. It's the same idiocy. So that's where things have gotten. You have to get out of that in order to use Septemics. The whole digital revolution has drastically reduced the reading of books. So you have to have the idea of opening a book and learning from it. It takes time to learn any subject. You have to take time and study it. The population has become much more stimulus response than it used to be.
That's affecting their neurology, their physiology. If you've got your foot on the gas all the time, you're inducing your sympathetic nervous system, which is releasing more cortisol, more inflammation. Science has shown that if somebody has an excess of cortisol and you're interacting with them, that seeps out through the dermis into your energy fields. You process that, and people wonder why they're feeling the way they're feeling. They've interacted with possibly somebody on the bottom of the scale who is generating unconsciously inflammation, hormonal imbalances. This whole dopamine reward system, and you can see it with Apple. When I see people lining up outside the main Apple store in Regent Street overnight just to get the latest iPad, you see images in the morning with elation that they've just got this latest Mac.
That's right.
So the engineering that goes into it must target, in my view, the dopamine receptors, the reward system, to enable and empower or disempower those people who are like lemmings. It's incredible to watch.
Yes. And that is why I don't know too much about the politics of other countries, but in the United States, the polarization now is worse than it was during the Civil War. I mean, if you say boo, a riot breaks out. People show up with guns and kill people. It was not anything like this 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. 50 years ago, America was an amicable place. People were friendly, a live and let live type of place. God forbid you should tell anybody what you think about politics or religion, because people are into this sort of Heil Hitler frame of mind that you described at the Apple store. And it's dangerous. It's really scary. So there's no such thing as having a pleasant conversation. Like William F. Buckley, who was a noted conservative, had a TV show called Firing Line and ran for, I don't know, something like 35 years. It was just him with a clipboard, and he'd have a guest in, and they would discuss something. He would bring in some noted person, Noam Chomsky or Robert F. Kennedy. This was many years ago, right? And they would have a discussion. There was no fireworks. There were no insults. It was very collegial, friendly. It was obvious before you turned on the show that they disagreed. But they would discuss it. Why do you think this? Why do you think that? Oh, you think this? What about this? And now that's like unheard of. It doesn't happen now. Now it's like attack. You have a country of people at or near the bottom of the scale of evaluation, discourage, invalidate, condemn. I have my own ideas and beliefs, but I don't discourage, invalidate, or condemn anybody. Why would I want to do that? That doesn't help anything. People ask me directly, who do you think I should vote for? What do you think? I'm not going to tell them. I say, what do you think? Now, I'm not the arbiter for anything.
You set yourself up for a fall when you give that kind of advice. People ask me similar things. For me, it's about, look, you can set your feet upon your own path, but you've got to find your path and look for the signs along the way. I can't do that for you. I can't fix you. No one can fix you, because who knows you better than you?
That's right. That's what this book is about. It helps you to know yourself and others. Oh, I see. This guy's at this level on this scale. Once you see that, the light bulb goes on over your head, and you can try to move the person up if you want, or move yourself up if you want, or you can just say, okay, now I understand. I understand what's going on here. So it dispels worries. You're not getting emotionally involved because you see what's in front of you. You look at this guy and say, oh yeah, this guy's a communist. So you don't get bent out of shape because you understand it. What is this person about? Like I had somebody I know did something to me the other day, was a little bit invalidative. And I could see something must be bothering this person. So it was something that was a little discouraging to me. So I spotted it. And then I just went back to being neutral. Maybe this person didn't sleep well last night. Maybe this person had a fight with the spouse. So I just spotted it. Okay, a little discouragement, fine. I'm back to neutrality. Now I'm going back to neutrality, then I can go back to acceptance, which is where I normally was with this person. That's where you want to be, right? That's a good place to be. You want to accept the people around you. And as I said, everybody has good things about them. Hermann Goering, who was the second in command of the Third Reich, he was a bona fide war hero. He was seriously injured fighting in World War I. He was very highly respected in Germany. Unfortunately, because of the injury, he was in pain and he had to take painkillers and he wound up becoming a drug addict. There had all kinds of implications in his life. He would have been a different person. That's what this is about. You use it to see, what am I looking at? And you can not only use this scale, you can use the other 34 as well.
I'm really looking forward to that. Do you want to bridge the next week?
The next is the scale of motivation. It's a specific scale, meaning it can be used hundreds or thousands of different times. It's really important. Knowing someone's motivation is extremely valuable. Why is this person talking to me? Why does this person want me around? Why does this person not want me around? You can parse it. And then when you get it, there's the possibility of moving the person up, whether it's yourself or another. Personally, I think that the world will be a completely different place if everybody was at level 1, which is charity. So you move yourself up. And as you get to the top range of the scales, you're a better person. Now, when I say better, I don't decide what's better. You decide what's better because the level is there. It tells you if you're motivated by charity, that's the best motivation. Most people say, oh, hey, that's where I want to be. Getting there is another thing because you have levels to go through.
Where can people find you, Jim?
I invite them to my website, septemics.com. There's a lot of interesting stuff there that will tell you all about this. My contact information is on the website in case you want to send me a nasty email.
Jim, thank you so much for your insights and your time today.
It's a pleasure.